Oh yeah, can he push the keeper in the box?
Fuck off.
Oh yeah, can he push the keeper in the box? Oh yeah, can he push a keeper? Because the VAR will see. Oh yeah, can he push a keeper in the box? Fucking play the intro. Get it up, Punk.
Hello, ladies and gents, and welcome back to the Football Bee Podcast, episode 25. My name is Fennan, and John alongside me, a very jovial mayhem indeed. How are you doing, my good friend?
I'm good, mate. I'm good. I'm buoyant. You know,
I'm just fucking sweating, mate. Honestly, it is baking
in
in
Sweden.
here. Mate, it's 26 degrees here. It's like living in someone's mouth for whatever reason with the humidity. And if you're looking at me and I'm looking a little bit pink or red than usual, yes, I have suffered sunburn in the last couple of days. As a matter of fact, I was involved in coaching one of my school football teams last Thursday. So there was myself and there was Kian, who has been on the podcast previously. And we took the Year 6s to their annual IES tournament, in which there's a boys team and a girls team. The boys team had not got out of the group stage in the last 5 to 6 years. Unfortunately, that tradition does continue. However, I feel very proud in myself. I managed to get my girls team to the quarterfinal until we were unfortunately knocked out by one of the finalists, funny enough, but we weren't there to make up the numbers. We got a respectable position in the tournament, and because I was so indulged in the coaching and the motivating and wanting to really push this team as far as they can, I forgot to put sunscreen on, and so here I am, shedding skin all over the gaff.
With accolades like that, you may get a call from a certain govern side in a few months. You never know.
Well, you know what? As soon as you said that, like, I'm looking at, like, this is a lot. I was very happy with this retro shirt, but the colours on it really looks conflicting.
But we'll let you off. We can clearly see it's a Cardiff top.
I mean, to be honest, because of how hot it is, I'm tempted just to go fucking bare chested in this episode. It's so fucking warm.
We'd definitely get cancelled before we ever get started if you did that.
No, I know. Well, speaking of govern things, we only had a handful of games this weekend, and one of those was the Scottish Cup final, which was played at the same time as the F.A Cup. Unfortunately, I didn't watch it. I was currently around Kian's apartment watching the two Manchester sides go at it for the F.A Cup. Resulting to that, I missed the entire game. I've just caught up on the highlights, but the outcome was what we wanted. Celtic winning by 1-0. Adam Idah once again coming off the bench to score a vital goal for the boys in green, and Celtic do retain the Scottish Cup. But you, Mayhem, of course, you obviously picked the right final to watch, and it was always going to be the final you were going to watch. But take us through your analogy of what took place in that game. It seemed like it was a game that took a long time to settle, and it was going to be a matter of fine margins as to really decide a winner in that fixture.
Yeah. Shout out to Ooh-Ah up the Idah. But
Ooh-Ah up the Idah. That's a new one. I love it.
Beautiful. There's all sorts of lovely jingles and tunes that have been being sung all around the world for people of a Celtic persuasion. The cup final, let's get it out there. Can be completely honest. Dog shit game. Horrific game.
Yeah.
Like I said, I didn't watch the English FA Cup final. I imagine it was a better spectacle. This game was very stop and start. I think Nick Walsh managed to brandish 11 yellow cards. I mean, you only had to look at someone in the cup final when he was given out a yellow card.
I'll keep an eye out for that name if I'm putting on an Aki for yellow cards in the future.
he was very card happy. Um, but ultimately, we're not going to remember the 89 minutes that preceded the 90th, because that was the perfect moment, and finished the season off exactly the way that we wanted to do it. And I've said, before we get into breaking the game down, I've said so many times, and if there is any regular listeners, who knows, maybe there is, they'll know quite rightly that I've said that this isn't a great Celtic team, and it's not a great Rangers team, and if we were to win the league this year, it would hurt them.
And it has.
We've won a fucking double. This team, through all the ups and downs, through Brendan obviously trying to implement a style that was obviously, while similar in some aspects, vastly different to what Ange Postecoglou had installed off the back of the treble winning season. Oh God, it's such a shite time to be one of them. Fucking hell. It was going back and forth. Obviously, we squandered an 8-point lead. Philip Clement, the best thing since Pep Guardiola had arrived in Glasgow, and they were going for the quadruple. Not the quadruple, the quadruple. That's what they were calling it, the quadruple. Fair play to them. And then they got absolutely fucking pumped out of the Europa League by Benfica, and it broke down to the treble. They secured the League Cup. Well done to them. A cup that they have referred to many times as the Diddy Cup, but now apparently it's a big cup. Good, but fair play, you won it. No, we got knocked out.
It's always the case, though, isn't it?
The treble was on in December. Philip Clement's men were on the charge. Unfortunately for him, he had to play Celtic a number of times, and he's just not very good at that. He's not very good at it at all. But the game started. The first half, we were, I think, by far the best team. There's been a theme this season where Celtic are, by a way, far the superior team in the first half, and the Rangers seem to grow back into games in the second half, barring, obviously, John Lundstrom's lovely contribution to the final league derby of the season, where basically meant that they couldn't do anything, and they still tried to give it a wee go at Celtic Park. Problem is that it's just not very good.
So hang on, because it was obviously a cup game, was John Lundstrom eligible to play based off of off the back of the off the red card he got in the league fixture?
He was eligible. He was on the bench. So they went with a midfield of Diamande, Raskin, and Todd TikTok Cantwell. That was who was playing through the middle for him. I'm sure he's certainly got some things to post. But yeah, the first half was, we clearly had a tactic. That was that their Hall of Famer, their captain, superb, James Tavernier, isn't very good at defending, and Maeda is very quick. So we were trying the diagonal ball. Cameron Carter was trying to hit Maeda and get him behind, and it was successful a few times. And it's been, I imagine James Tavernier has nightmares about Maeda. I imagine he gets home after derbies and he still thinks he's chasing him. He goes for a piss to the toilet and he still thinks Maeda's going to chase him down the fucking hallway.
That is really
So that was the clear tactic. But I don't think as on top as we were in the first half, we never really carved out any real chances. It certainly wasn't having our best day going forward. Our big players, Hatate, O'Reilly, James Forrest, that's been called up to the provisional Scotland squad off the back of his form across the last month and a bit. He was having a poor game. Like I said, Maeda was having success against Tavernier, but not really delivering. Kyogo was quite quiet, and they did nothing at the other end. I don't really think Butland or Joe Hart had much of anything to do in the first half of any note. Like a few shots maybe that was easy enough for him to take, but nothing certainly gilt edge, you would say. A couple of shouts for penalties. Certainly there's a handball that comes off of Ben Davis that we've seen been given time and time again. And John Beaton on VAR decided that although we've seen he's given all
Oh, of all
season.
people.
Well, wait, we'll get there. Right, I think his conscience kicked in.
So I hear that name, and I'm just like on it. Like, ah!
Like I think on another day, that gets given the handball, the Ben Davies one. His arms away from his body. It hits it with sin and given all season. I think there's an argument as well where Maeda puts a ball in and Kyogo's coming in between two defenders. That Balogun goes through the back of Kyogo to actually get to the ball, and there's a foul in there. But neither here nor there. And the first half kind of peters out, and you always knew that they were going to come out. This was their game, really. This was their way to really plaster over the cracks that we've seen form over the last few months, and then bottle in the title and pretend that they've had somewhat of a good season because they'd have ended with 2 cups, and they would have tried in many respects to deliver that as a better season. And they come out in the second half, and they were certainly the more attacking team, I think, for a bulk. They certainly seem to take over, and momentum seemed to swing, which happens quite often in these games. And I said, Celtic didn't have their best day. And then the infamous corner comes. They were swinging the ball in all day on Joe Hart. They obviously thought that was an area where they could get some joy. And the ball swings in. The ball looks at first glance to just go over Joe Hart, and Seamer's at the back post, and it kind of just hits his knee and goes in. Pandemonium ensues within the Onion Bears and all of the cronies, situated off to, I think, the left-hand side. I don't know. The left side of Hampden, their side.
Yeah, that's it. That side.
And they, that was their moment. They had. By the way, they've not led against us all season. Just to be caveat, just to dial up the pain. That was their moment. They were in front.
Effect.
They were in front. This was their moment. And then Nick Walsh was called to the monitor. Now, bearing in mind that, again, John Beaton is on VAR, this is most unexpected, that he has seen something that would make Nick Walsh go over and look at this. Nico Raskin has 2 hands on Joe Hart and pushes him. There's a lot of, as there is at any corner, there's a lot of argy-bargy stuff that's going on in the box.
Absolutely.
And Raskin clearly pushes Joe Hart. Look, I'm obviously, very biased and happy that decision was given and the game remained at 0-0. As a caveat to that, I would say if it was up the other end, I would be seething if that was given against us. But again, if you're going to put your hands on a keeper in this day and age, you're going to run the risk, especially with VAR. Look, you can't push a keeper in the box.
Yeah. Well, even pre-VAR days, like I think referees were very observant in terms of when it came to set-piece situations that obstructing the keeper in any shape or form, then it was never going to be a decision that was going to be considered lightly.
Yeah,
I think Raskin already was in the wrong in that sense anyway.
And he's in no way coy about how he does it. Very clearly, 2 hands on the back, pushes Joe Hart. But there's so much going on in the box that I can understand why they're aggrieved. Looking at it and looking at the rule book, is it the right decision? I think so. But, without VAR, would we have, without VAR and refs analysing it, would we have seen it to complain about it? Joe Hart was very animated, going to the referee. He clearly felt he was fouled.
Yeah, right.
Yes, of course. And would we as fans have seen it without VAR? Would there have been this outpouring? I don't think so. But alas, VAR is here, whether you like it or not. They've pulled that up. And I think, by the letter of the law, you put 2 hands on him, you've pushed the keeper, you've impeded him, and it's called up as a foul. back to 0-0 and back to the game being, again, very scrappy, just being broken up by fouls, lots of yellow cards, lots of nothing challenges really that are being punished by yellow cards, and a lot of pettiness and shithousery going on between the players. And then step forward, Paulo Bernardo, 89th minute, receives the ball in the middle of midfield, sidesteps Raskin. Raskin looking like he's done 7 14-hour shifts in a row to try and drag Paulo Bernardo down because the wee fella looks shattered. That'll be because he's barely fucking played all seasons in the biggest game of his career. But Bernardo manages to shrug the little shite bag off, starts bearing down on goal, gets to about 20 yards out, hits a strike that swerves in the air, and their player of the season, their England's number one shout, their Gareth Southgate call.
You've hit the nail on the head there. Yeah.
Parries it in front of him, and Adam Idah, charging in, beautifully timed, follows up, places it under Butland, and there it is, in the 90th minute, stealing the game.
Kids flying across the... He just flipped up all over the place, Papa Army over here.
Very, very reminiscent of, when Tom Rodgick scored late against Aberdeen, back in Brendan's first stint to secure the treble. And really, Adam Idah, fair play to him. If he goes back down to Norwich and he doesn't come back, then he leaves the club on a fantastic note. And if we decide that this is a guy that we think that is a right fit for the club, he's come up and he's done a fantastic job, and I think it surprised everybody. He was an underwhelming signing. Let's make no qualms about it. He was an underwhelming signing when he turned up.
No, I won't disagree with that whatsoever. No, I think it was always going to be a very hit or miss in terms of how successful he would have been at Celtic, and I think he's, in all fairness, I think he's had a fantastic spell at the club, who's won multiple honours, and he went out on a happy ending, which I felt he deserved.
Scored massive goals as well, not just that one there. Obviously scored at Ibrox, which then meant that we took a draw from the game because obviously Rabin Matondo got the equaliser. Scored big goals at Fir Park when we needed goals away at Motherwell after they had just gone, whatever it was, clear. Was it 7 clear or whatever they had gone because they'd played the game before and we were cutting it back down to 5 or whatever it was. Maybe it was 5. I don't know what it was. But anyway, massive goals to keep us in the title race at that point. He scored 2 penalties at Easter Road on his debut. Easter Road always been a tough place for Brendan Rodgers to go and get results. So he has scored big goals when he's been needed, not to mention obviously kick-starting the title party at Rugby Park a few games ago by getting the first as we went on to thump Killy 5-0. He's done brilliant. Fair play to the boy. And like I said, he's a Celtic fan born in Cork, and he's come up here and lived the dream. Whether or not he gets to come back or he wants to come back, who knows?
Would you take him back as a fan?
100%. Yeah, 100%. I think the rumour is kind of fluttering around at 4 or 5 million. Yeah, depending on whatever happens with Kyogo or what we see fit there, because no doubt that Kyogo hasn't had his best season and has maybe struggled to fit into Brendan's system. I think he kind of started to understand it a little bit more towards the end of the season and started to score more frequently.
Yeah, he started to pick up a bit more, didn't he? Yeah.
But, whatever happens there happens. But certainly the boy to come in and be back up to Gogo, or, maybe if Gogo was to leave. Honestly, and it seems mad because like I said, it was an underwhelming signing, but, he scored at Ibrox. He's scored against Rangers in a cup final. That there's no reason this guy couldn't come in from next season and start for us and be a sufficient striker domestically. There would still be big question marks about the European nights and whether or not that's something that he could transfer his performance into. But domestically, I don't think there's anybody that we would doubt he could get goals against, because he scored at Ibrox and obviously the cup final. If he can do it against Rangers domestically, he can do it against anyone.
Absolutely. Well, and then another goodbye that Celtic had to make was to Joe Hart. It was his final game in a Celtic jersey, and he was another one that came in and was a little bit very questionable at the time, where it was like, is this man gonna be our main man between the sticks? Is it going to be the case of that we have to be in the market every 6 months for another goalkeeper, and we have Joe Hart as a understudy for them, whatever? But someone who has had won multiple honours under the Ange era, and then with Brendan as well, and it was good to see him again have another have his happy ending as well with the club, and thoroughly deserved. I know you've had your questions about him this season, and I'm pretty sure you'd think that it is probably the right time now to really move on and see what Brendan can produce in the summer, and have someone come in and hopefully repeat the same heroics as Joe Hart did over the last 2-3 seasons he's been at the club.
Yeah, again, echo certainly what you said there. Again, it was another signing that didn't really excite, should we say? But shrewd business. He's gone on, become a fan favourite. He's a great leader, a great person, a great personality off the pitch, and he's really brought into what Celtic is and the identity of the club. I think performance-wise and output, there probably is better in the market that we can go and get. But again, he's made massive saves when we've needed him, especially towards the end of the season. He finishes his goalkeeping career with a clean sheet, which is amazing, and like you said, a double, and was very emotional. Speaks fantastically well, very humble.
How was your time at Celtic? It was decent.
And whoever comes in will have big boots to follow. Especially the kind of business that we've done in the market as well. That hasn't again been until inspiring the likes of Barkas, Scott Bain, that still remains at the football club.
Yeah. It's definitely a tough market to go into for a goalkeeper. It absolutely is, especially for someone like Celtic as well, where you've got that pedestal on you already to be like, right, this is a top club who is challenging for the title year in, year out, challenging domestically year in, year out, and it's a big responsibility for a goalkeeper to come to a big club like Celtic and to be able to replicate previous keepers that have been on the books. And Joe Hart, rightfully so, writes his name in those books, and it'll be difficult for whoever comes in to be.
Yeah, I've seen a few names. A few names batted about. Fraser Forster's obviously out of contract again. And we all have fond memories of Big Phrase. Kean Keller as well, or Kevin Keller, or however you say it, from Liverpool. He's been obviously worked with Brendan, I think, before his time at Liverpool. Maybe making that up as complete bullshit. But certainly he's been linked. There's, I think, more fanfare, but the videos of De Gea going around, and the levels that Joe Hart has produced. There's people saying, hold on a minute, let's have a chat.
David De Gea, that's a really good shout. I mean, he's been out of football for the whole season, but I mean, this guy, again, his portfolio speaks for himself, as it did with Joe Hart at the time when he came to the club. It may be worth having. It may be worth having a go with them.
And I think it's such a niche market that keepers tend these days to cost a lot, whereas before you could maybe get someone in on fairly cheap, because of style of play and what you're looking for from a keeper, especially from a Celtic keeper. What you're looking for is someone that needs to be concentrated for 90 minutes, because in 90% of our domestic games, you're only probably going to be needed once or twice, but you need that concentration level because so that the other team doesn't capitalize. And also, as well as that, you then need them to come to the forefront in European games and the derby games and stuff like that. So it's a very different role, I think.
It's a unique role. Sorry to cut you off there, but it's a very unique role as well, because I feel as a goalkeeper for Celtic as well, it's very easy to fall into that line of complacency as well, in the sense of Celtic go away to Kilmarnock, for example, go 2 goals up, and then all of a sudden the mind switches off. There's such a strong mental factor being a Celtic goalkeeper, to be able to be switched on, to keep your back line in place and to maintain their focus and their structure. There's so much more to it being a Celtic keeper, I feel.
Yeah, and so we'll see what we can do in regards to that, but he absolutely signs off the best way. And I'm sure in some way he'll stay in football, whether that's coaching or something like that, Championship club, or maybe even Shrewsbury. Obviously that's where he's from, and he's very proud to represent the town of Shrewsbury. But I'm sure the energy that he gives and the way he goes about and he plies himself off the pitch, and the way that people warm to him, I'm sure whatever he does next, he'll do it fantastically well. And I think there was a vlog or like a match day thing where he'd come up to the camera and he said, "Thanks for having me. If by any off chance this ever reached the ears of Joe Hart on behalf," and I'm sure he felt it on not only the last league game, when we were lifting the title, he felt on Sunday as well, that he's going to be sorely missed, and we wish him all the best, and thank him for his contribution to again to add on to this incredible dominance that Celtic have on Scottish football. It is fantastic, the kind of dominance that has never been seen before. Not even the Lisbon Lions, not even when Rangers were cheating with all their money in the 90s. This is a level of dominance that is unparalleled to any other era. And he's come in and been a massive part of that. So, fantastic servant for the time he's been here. And 100% we wish him all his best.
I mean, I honestly would clip every word you just said there, and I don't know if Joe Hart uses social media. I don't think he does, but I would have made that a clip and sent that to him, and I'm sure he would have appreciated that very much. But no, honestly, happy retirement, Joe Hart, if you are listening, and wish you all the best in your future endeavours, and hope to see you back soon. And keep yourself in the game of football. Your character is needed, because you are a decent individual. Sorry, I bet. Yeah. But look, I wanted to move on to obviously we spoke yesterday regarding of what we should put together for today's episode, and we always like to do our end of season ratings for our respective clubs. And so what I've done, I've drafted up a team here, and I put it in the sense of Celtic's best team on paper, their best first 11. And then by all means, as we go through, feel free to disagree if you feel that someone else should be in that void, and then maybe we can add 2 or 3 players as honourable mentions. So let me know. So of course, starting off, as we are already on the topic of him, Joe Hart.
Yeah, clearly our best keeper this season. Not many minutes for any other keeper at the club. I don't even know if Scott Bain has made an appearance this season.
I think he did
But
probably. I think he's made about one or two. I don't know if that was through suspension or if it was through injury. I'm not too sure, but I'm pretty sure.
yeah, I think
It
Joe
was
Hart
like I think it
sent
was.
off. Yeah,
Yeah,
at
that's it. He got
Livingston.
sent off. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, look at again. Just following on from that.
Scott Bain 0.
um,
Sorry, Scott.
I think I think for Joe, like I said, there has been a few shaky moments in there. I mean, as much as he is well loved, he absolutely scares a shot out of me from corners. Joe Wade can't catch a ball.
Yeah.
Like, please, Joe, fucking catch the ball.
Can we call Joe Count Dracula because you don't like crosses?
But yeah, I think overall, I think he finished with about 14 clean sheets, which is no mean feat in the league. Wins the double, keeps a clean sheet in the final. The semi-final, misses a penalty, but also saves the penalty. I think
that's not something you hear very often, is it?
I know, yeah. We're doing it on like 1 to 10.
Yeah, rating of 1 to 10.
I'm going to give him. I'm going to fence it a little bit and go 7.5. Apparently, we're going to have
for a decimal.
Yeah, we're going to have some decimals floating in here.
Yeah, no worries. I'm good with decimals. I've got a CM math at GCSE level, so yeah, I know what they are. Okay, we're going to move over to right back now, and I mean, there's no one else but Alistair Johnson.
Yeah, this rating may look at. I think there's a contingency of the Celtic support that maybe isn't his biggest fan. I actually really like him. Angie's had a really good season. He's reliable. He's tenacious. He loves the tackle. He loves the fight. He stands up to it. And I think he is, because I'm trying to think forward so I don't make myself look a wee bit stupid. I'm going to go 9.
9 out of 10?
Mm-hmm.
I like Alistair Johnson as well. I really do. I think I really do agree with you. Him being a tenacious player, and it's it's a very rare. Unless you're looking at the top elite clubs, where they do just produce going forward and being able to track back at the same time and just be so lethal in their position. I think Alistair Johnson really does tick the boxes there as well. So no, 9 out of 10. It's a good rating. And centre back, I don't know what to expect on this one, and I think you know who I'm going to go for here. Liam Scales.
Oh,
just a sigh there, like oh.
I know.
No pass backs. No fucking pass backs.
The difficulty here is that what I'm rating here is Celtic players, which I know that sounds, stupidly obvious. But what I mean by that is, I'm rating them as a standard of what is expected at Celtic. I'm not rating it on, the individual. Liam Scales has had a fantastic season for Liam Scales. And the fact we have to caveat that for Liam Scales means that ultimately I think he falls into that same bracket as Joe Hart, and I would 7.5 him.
7.5, okay. I mean,
and that's harsh because this is probably his best season he's ever going to have, and he was incredibly good for the first half of the season.
Yeah.
And in a period where Narowski and Larga Bielka and all these other people, Nat Phillips, have rolled into the football club, and he's been the constant. There's a reason he's been that. But at the same time, he's just flawed in other areas.
Yeah,
and
I get that.
The time he dilly-dallies on the ball and his distribution, as a defender, as just a raw defender, he's a very good defender, very good at getting up, getting back tackles. But there's more that comes with that. Unfortunately, at Celtic, and he lacks in those areas.
Yeah, no, by all means. I mean, you know what? I'm kind of glad you added decimals to this the team rating segment, to be honest, because I was thinking like whole numbers, because I'm very basic like that, math foundation and all that shit. So yeah, 7.5. I think that's a fair rating for Liam Scales, and I mean not just as a Celtic player, but as a player himself, based off of his playing career. I think, like you said, he had a very, very strong start to the season, and then it felt like, I mean, like you said, like the glass ceiling kind of started to crack a little bit in some games, and some performances he really started to dwindle a little bit on the way, and so like I think 7.5 is a valiant score by all means, absolutely. And then the other centre back, I think obviously you named there off the back, like Lager BLK, Naroski, Nat Phillips. I've got to go Cameron Carter-Vickers. I know he missed a big chunk of the season at one point, but he's one of those centre backs who I just always, as soon as I think of him, I think of Celtic, and so by all means, yeah, if that's a valid choice to make
100%.
Starting 11, then by all means, go ahead.
Yeah, 100%. Cameron Carter-Vickers is, and we'll get on to our team of the seasons later on, and a lot of people are probably going to question the words that come out of my mouth right now, because Cameron Carter-Vickers is the best defender in Scotland, bar none, on ability. Unfortunately, this season he's missed quite a bit of football, so I don't think he's Alistair Johnson level, because Alistair Johnson has been ever present. He's been there. At the same time, even missing the bulk when he's there, he shows the gulf that Liam Scales, what Liam Scales is, and where he's flawed, and where we could improve on Liam. So I think Cameron Carter-Vickers, like I said, best defender, but this season it's an 8.
8 out of 10. I like that. I like that. And that really does go to show the level that he's playing at, and how above he is in that league overall, and how he is for Celtic. And that is just missing a chunk of the season there. Just sort of goes to show like what caliber of player he really is.
There's a debate to be had, and we won't have it now, because I'm not quite sure that we would come up with an answer going back and forth. But is Cam? And I'm not right. I'm going to caveat this one. I'm not saying he's a better player
hang
now.
On, hang on. Where are you going with this, mate?
I'm not saying he's a better player now, but I'm talking in terms of Celtic spells.
Yeah,
Cameron Carter-Vickers is a better defender and has a more of an impact at Celtic than Virgil van Dijk.
Oh, there it is. I was waiting to say that name. No, but
he isn't
a
better defender than Virgil.
You know what?
Let's
valid question. And I think they're different. I think they were very different. I think Virgil van Dijk, I think he was younger than Carter-Vickers when he was,
Virgil van Dijk was taking the piss, mate. He was taking fucking free kicks in Scotland.
Mate, he was taking free kicks. He was doing runs from the halfway line. I mean, it's not making a good argument, to be honest.
He was taking the piss. It was like someone playing pro clubs and they were getting bored, and they're like, "Hey, let me take the free kick."
Do you know what I mean?
Fucking to do. But I think when we're talking about an
it's
overall
like old school
impact,
Jericho, Tim Howard on the ball.
an overall impact, there's a massive discussion to be had there, and I think most Celtic fans would recognise it as well. But we are also very proud that we had Virgil van Dijk as well.
Yeah.
We found him.
But again, like to mention Carter-Vickers in the same in the same note there as Van Dijk is it's a big compliment to you, Cameron, by all means. All right, moving on. Left back, Greg Taylor.
Yeah, I really like Greg Taylor, which again I think is maybe. I don't
think that's a bad thing, no.
Might be a hot take. I think we can improve on him. I think Greg Taylor's biggest thing, I've heard people say this isn't me, pulling this out of my own head and creating this narrative. I think Greg Taylor's biggest problem is he isn't Kieran Tierney. I think that's his biggest problem. You know, we
Do you
had
think
this.
that's the big comparison that Celtic fans draw
Yeah,
to, though?
because you know we had this world class, amazing left back, marauding. You know, could do it all. We played him so much, God love him, that we shattered his hips, and he hasn't really been able to thrive down south the way he should have. But I think that's Taylor's biggest problem. The way that Tierney would go on the outside and he would be so dynamic. I think this season Greg struggled a wee bit because I think Brendan wanted him to do that at the start, and that
Because
isn't his
he
game.
thrived under Postecoglou, didn't he?
Yeah. Yeah, and I think Brendan's allowed him to come into midfield and play that inverted role a little bit more as the season's gone on, and I think he's got better. So I think, again, an 8.
An 8 out of 10. No, I think I know I'd agree with that as well. Like, I mean, he's had to readjust himself, and there's clearly a particular way you've got to utilise Greg Taylor, and Ange got the best out of him, and for him to make that transition into that Brendan Rodgers philosophy, I think it took him time to to make that readjustment. But I felt definitely in the latter stages of the season he really started to stand out a little bit more, and I think he's been one of those players that's been ever present for Celtic in the last 3 seasons or so.
Yeah, look, I think come the big games, the derby games, and the final, you know, he can be relied on.
Absolutely,
and he's got a real a real personality that he seems to be very demanding of those around him, which is obviously a really good thing on the pitch. I think he brings the best out. He plays in a way that complements that whole left side as well. Great worker, and I know that I've said a lot of, you know, it isn't enough to just work, but he does add, and he comes in and he inverts and he opens up that space. And I think he's not had his best season in a Celtic shirt, like I said, that we've alluded to there. I think that those happened under Postecoglou. But I still think he's had a good season.
Yeah, no, absolutely agree. I've gone with 3 in midfield. Now 2 I'll definitely put in. Again, there's one individual that stands out, and again that's purely courtesy of injury throughout the season. But again, like I said, feel free to disagree. I'm going to go with Rio Hatate.
Yeah, I think that's fair. You know, when we're talking about the midfield 3, that's our best midfield. I think he's the best midfield in Scotland. But Rio, again, I don't think he's hit the heights. Whether that be some stuff in the summer that carried over, whether he was maybe had his head turned. He was obviously linked with Brighton and the shining lights of the Premier League. Injuries as well, but when he's come back, and then got back up to full fitness. He certainly has improved the team, and he's a massive part of that midfield. But I think this season, I couldn't rate him better than Joe Hart or Liam Scales just because of the ups and the downs. So I'd have to go with a 7.
7 out of 10. There. Callum McGregor, yes.
Yeah, the caveat to this as well is that Callum is my captain. He's a winner. He's won every final he's played in. He is decorated beyond belief at the club. I just don't think this season he's been at the level that he's been. He's turned up in big games, and especially towards the end of the season. I just think that in previous seasons there's been more. He was obviously injured for a little bit as well.
He did have a spell out, didn't he?
He was coming back, playing sort of 60, 65 minutes. I think he's been better than Hatate, so I don't think I can give him a 7. But at the same time, I don't think he's had. I don't think we missed in the games that he was gone. We would have missed him in the derby games, stuff like that, because of what he brings. But I don't think we missed him in the same way that we have Carter Vickers. So I think I have to put him in that 7.5 bracket.
7.5 for Callum McGregor. That's fair enough. Matt O'Reilly.
The best midfielder in Scotland. The man that will break the Scottish transfer record when he goes. If Anthony can leave Ajax for fucking 90 odd million or whatever it was, this guy is 35 million pounds worth of player. He's our player of the season. He is a 10. He couldn't have done any more this season.
10 out of 10. 10 out of 10. 10 out of 10. All right, this is going to be an interesting one. I'm going to go out onto the left flank, and he is someone that we describe as a great athlete. Daizen Maeda. The pause says it all. What do we rate him on here? His athleticism or his footballing ability?
His ability to torment James Tavernier.
Well, we can base it on that if you want. Yeah. 12.
Yeah. I think we have to be fair. And I don't think, again, I don't know. I don't know if he's. I'm gonna just bite the bullet and say 7.
7 out of 10. To be fair, I think it's a good thing that you went straight for the rating there, because I felt that your mind was going in all different directions there and really trying to justify what sort of rating he would have got. And so, I think 7 out of 10 is fair. I think, in all fairness, like, we know that he works hard, but we know his footballing ability, there's plenty of room for improvement, but he has produced big performances when needed. And at one point where we were saying, when going into a fixture against Rangers, and he was, initially he was ruled out for the season, and we sat here and we thought, like, he's going to be a figure that's going to be missed. And thankfully he returned just before the end of the season and played a big part. And so I think that's a fair review on Daizen Maeda.
Yeah,
right. Yeah, sorry, go on.
Yeah, you've put the nail on the head. He is a player that frustrates because he is so athletic and, again, tenacious and so heavy and does so much for the team. But when we're breaking it down individually, he could do far more and probably should get more goals and assists than he does. Yeah. But I think a 7 in there with Rio, which I think he's in good company.
Yeah, absolutely. Right wing was very, very difficult to pick, and
fucking hard to score as well.
It was a very difficult choice to make, and I put it down to 2 players. And I mean, again, this is going to be one that you may disagree with, but I think based off of the number of starts they've made since the turn of the year, I'm going to go with Nicholas Kuhn. Yeah.
I think that makes sense, to be honest. I think recent bias would have Forest in there, but
he was the other contender there,
Yeah, across the season, or certainly since January, obviously, I think he's the fair shot. He has not really sort of had his breakout moment or really come through. He certainly improved. He come to the club and, there was fitness issues.
It took a while for him to really get going,
But I think, we have to be fair. If we're looking at, Daizen's overall contribution and who, the level of player that we already have in that 7.5 category, and we've got to be really honest and say that Nicholas Kuhn is nowhere near that. While he has the potential and he looks very good cutting inside. We need to see a little bit more of him drive into the byline and really committing players. And hopefully that will come. But I think based on the last 6 months since January, has to be a 6.
6 out of 10. 6 out of 10. That's a fair score. Very fair score. And then, leading the line, we're going to go with your famous number 8, Kyogo.
Yeah. Again, a difficult one really to...
I can imagine it's going to be a hard one to make. In comparison to how brilliant he was last season, it's not quite been the same under Brendan Rodgers.
Yeah, struggled, like I said, I think maybe with some of the stuff that Brendan was asking him to do early on, when I think maybe, Andrew's very simplistic and they wanted him to press and get him behind and get into the box. I think Brendan's maybe asking him to do a little bit more than that, and he's struggled to bring that side into his game. But scored big goals towards the end of the season. At home, he hasn't scored away from home in a while. So I think with that, like he still has had a massive contribution, and for me, he's still the best striker in Scotland. Still scored a winner at Ibrox, scored a stunner at Celtic Park. Totally end up winning the game as well in the New Year derby, and has haunted them. So I think for the same reason that Cameron Carter-Vickers got the 8, he comes into that bracket as well. Look, we know that there's far more that can be produced, but still had a telling contribution. And I think he lands himself
8 out of 10 for Kyogo.
In that bracket.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what it is with Kyogo. I just love his aura. I love his energy. Like, I love how much he has indulged the Celtic spirit during his time at the club. Like, I mean, there's me liking videos on X of him dancing with the fans. Like, I love everything about Kyogo. Like, even in a Glasgow derby where he's being so respectful to the opposing players, and he's one of the nicer guys in football, and we don't get that a lot nowadays. And by all means, that may be a cultural difference where he's Japanese, and obviously they're brought up on respect and dignity, whereas the UK aren't quite the same. Like, you know what I mean? So no, 8 out of 10. No, I'm glad you gave 8 out of 10 there for Kyogo. The honourable mentions, I did have one name there in mind, but I felt we'd given him a bit of a segment in himself in Adam Idah, so I'm gonna switch him up a little bit. So my original ones, I was gonna go with Narosky, because I felt he played a fair bit for Celtic at centre back, courtesy of the injury from Carter-Vickers, and then Paulo Bernardo, where he's featured massively this season and in big moments, and James Forrest in replacement of Adam Idah.
Narowski's, I think, he's a super tough one to actually mark, because he has played a few games, but we were rotating all the time. Lager Bielka coming in, Stephen Welsh coming in. So I think Narowski kind of falls into that 6 category.
It was a tough one. I was trying to really, with the honourable mentions, I was trying to sort of find one for each area of the pitch, and that's what I mean. I felt Stephen Welsh hasn't featured too much. Lager Bielka hasn't featured too much. I thought Narowski had featured the most out of those 3.
But 6. I don't think his Celtic career's quite got going. Whether it will or not, don't know. Whether I don't know if Brendan has taken to him. It doesn't seem that way. But 6. Bernardo. He had a really purple patch. Obviously, scored in the New Year derby in the game where Kyogo obviously scored a fantastic volley. Went through a period of scoring in every game, or the other games, scoring fantastic goals as well, and then kind of fell off a little bit when Hatate come back and sort of kicked on. But I think I put him in that 7.5 bracket as well.
Good
Each
rating.
season,
Really good rating.
Whether or not we go and pay the money. Who knows? He played a lot of the Champions League games as well. He was obviously on the pitch when we drew with Atletico at home, which is probably the pick of the results, even though we beat Feyenoord. I think drawing with Atletico was probably the real shining result from the Champions League. You know, the win against Feyenoord got that monkey off our back that everyone used to fucking talk about on TNT Sport or whatever the fuck it was. Oh, they haven't won in this minute. Shut the fuck up. And then James Forrest.
He was going to be an interesting one because I know, like, I remember we were speaking towards the end of last season. We were going through. I'm pretty sure we were doing the segment of whether you'd renew their contract or not, and I think you said that his time was up, and so it was going to be a huge season for James Forrest going into this.
Yeah.
When Brendan came in and he had still given reassurances to James Forrest that he could still play a part in the Celtic side, and so
Yeah, I mean, again, incredibly decorated player. I think he's only one trophy now behind Bobby Lennox. I think
that's incredible.
He overtook or went level with Billy McNeil. Obviously,
One more year.
But yeah, was very non-existent until sort of bit part, sort of stop and start and here and there through the season, and then really come to life against Aberdeen in the semi-final, where he come on and scored and was really attacking, and that kind of really spurred on a real hot streak, and has had a real strong end and has been pivotal to big results in that time. So I think for that, he just creeps into the 7 category in there with Idah and Hatate, and I think even though he's probably started far less games than Nicholas Kuhn or even Yang or maybe even Lewis Palmer, I think he's probably has actually, Brendan had quite a controversial take at one point when he said he's the best winger at the football club, and he could have not come out the season looking that way. Certainly,
I think he's turned up. I think the last couple of weeks he's turned up a little bit. From what I've seen, I think he has really excelled in the way we've seen him at his best, and I hope he's been made aware of these records. I really, really hope so, because if Celtic go into the market this summer and do not strengthen that department, then, I mean, by all means, it'll be big expectations for James Forrest to really push on for another year. But by all means, like, if he has anything left in the tank, then he really needs to push on next season and not make it the sense of like, oh, he performed for the last 3-4 fixtures of the season. He's got to do it for, over a season of 30-35 games.
Yeah, like he's at that age where he probably doesn't have.
It's going to be difficult.
He probably doesn't have that in him. It probably would have to be used very cleverly and brought in. But there's no doubt that having players like McGregor and Hart and Forrest and boys that have just been there, done it, know how to win, know the expectations of the football club, absolutely pivotal. And in this title race, having those people, I think, has been the difference. So, I mean, complete U-turn. Would have given him one more year? Yeah, probably would. Just based off of the back end. Again, we can maybe see how he performs in the Euros. If he gets on the plane, he's obviously in the professional squad. But his experience, I think, has been invaluable, and it's led us to a double.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he's been very crucial in the dressing room as well. And you need those sort of players there as well who have been at the club for such a long time and know what it means. They know the model, they know the culture, they know the fan base, and to have those individuals in that dressing room is crucial.
Yeah, just gets his head down, plays his football, doesn't make any noise. Just does as the gaffer asks him and produces, and he has really produced some huge goals that have been invaluable to us. So yeah, put him in that bracket with
Yeah.
the likes of Hatate and Maeda. On Adam Idah, just to caveat it,
He was,
fantastic
yeah,
as
I
well.
was going to put him in there. I
Yeah.
was going to put him in.
Fantastic as well. He's obviously not Matt O'Reilly level because Matt O'Reilly's done it from the first game this season. Alistair Johnson again, I don't think I could put him into that bracket because Alistair Johnson again's done it over the course of 30 plus games. So I'd have him in slightly A.5.
8.5. You turned Canadian for a second.
Yeah, 8.5. I think he's he's
8.5
like I
for
said, he's
Adam Idah. Yeah.
scored massive goals.
He has. He
And
really has. And like, even just I think he has really defined impact sub this season. I mean, even not even alone against the big clubs like Rangers. No one else. And but he's come off the bench and he's always produced. He's always got himself on the score sheet, and he's had a really, really good loan spell. And if the opportunity does arise, then I'd love to see Brendan Rodgers exercise that option and see if we can bring him to Celtic permanently. By all means, that in contradiction, it would play a big part in Kyogo's future and whether or not he moves on or whether he stays. And by all means, it will still provide very good competition going forward.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think we're probably in the best position we've been for a couple of seasons to retain Kyogo, because like I said, he hasn't set the world alight. But on the flip side, Kyogo isn't a project player, isn't a youngster. So he may be thinking if he doesn't go in the summer, then he'll never get another chance. So it may be that he's kind of run his course and that's what he wants to do, and that's grand. I know that he's very disappointed at the lack of national team opportunities that he gets playing for Celtic. Doesn't get called up as regularly as he did, so that may tie in and have an impact. But look, whatever he does, again, fantastic stuff. And if he was to go, then he would go with it with our best wishes, and we would get a reasonable fee for him, I'm sure. But I would, if Adam Idah's available, bring the big man up the road. We've seen what happens when we go out and spend these 5 million on players and we don't think about. You look at Cameron Carter-Vickers, you look at Jota, Odsonne Edouard, when we broke our transfer record. If he's available, make it happen. We've had is he good enough? We've had the wee test. Well, actually, he is. So if he wants to come up here and wants to, play in those Champions League nights and put himself out on a world stage and a platform, then come up here for a couple of years and develop and then go back down south, which is the absolute ethos of the football club and the project that we sell. Then 100%. Why not?
To be honest, and obviously I'm going to be a little bit biased here, but do you feel that the Celtic project really does excel these certain players? Like, if we look in the past, we've had players that have, gone to top clubs in England, like your Scott Sinclairs have been to Man City, haven't thrived there, have gone to Celtic and just completely burst into life. Like, I feel that anyone that goes to Celtic, that doesn't come from like an obscure part of the world or somewhere where it's more of a risk over portfolio. Do you feel like that model really does stand out for a lot of players in the football market?
Yeah, I think they know that there's a pathway, and certainly in recent history, we can point to the likes of Virgil van Dijk and Odsonne Edouard. And Victor Wanyama and Kieran Tierney and these players that have come in, played very well, and then moved on to get their their big break, and sometimes it doesn't work out. And you have to look at Odsonne Edouard that looks available to leave in the summer from Crystal Palace. If Buck and Brendan get on the phone, bring him back.
Yeah.
But we certainly have that platform. You've got to go and make it down there. But what we will certainly do is get you in a position where we'll utilize you, we'll build you, and then we'll let you go on to the next step. And I'm pretty sure very soon, unfortunately, we'll be adding Matt O'Reilly to that list as well. Someone that we picked up for $1.5 million from McDonald's, given a platform, developed, and go on to the next stage of his footballing career. So we have that recent history to say, look, this is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to do it. But ultimately, you've got to come here and perform.
Yeah, of course, by all means, no, 100%. And like it's I don't know, it's a model I'm not familiar with, and it feels like with Cardiff sometimes when we have someone on our books that is just absolutely out of this world, who is really excelled at the club, and then you have a Premier League club come in for them. Like where we had on our books, we've had Robbie Earnshaw, Aaron Ramsey, Chris Gunter, Joe Ledley. It's, I don't know, in my mind it's always like it kind of breaks your heart a little bit. They're moving on to bigger things, and like at the same time you've got to be logical and think like this is a step up in their career, and they've got to consider their career before anything else. Like, but when you have it as a model at Celtic, like, how do you feel as a fan when they do look to move on to bigger pastures?
Yeah, it's tough. I think mainly because within my lifetime, we look and we had one of the best strikers in Europe in his peak that chose to stay with us when he could have gone off and play, and he proved that. Henrik Larsson had played for Barcelona and Man United and didn't look out of place. So, and he gave us his best years. So we look at that and we're like, this is a guy that was scoring at World Cups and Sweden international, and so why can't you do it? But the game's so different now. The money is mental. What Crystal Palace can pay Odsonne Edouard compared to what Celtic can pay, it's just night and day. So, you have to be realistic. Obviously, it's difficult to take because how long will it take to find another Matt O'Reilly? That's the that's the hard bit.
That's the thing, yeah. That's the next part of the model now, isn't it? Like Matt O'Reilly, who is obviously in high demand from big clubs around Europe, who are looking to get him to sign on the dotted line. Like I feel, he may be the next one who's going to go on to bigger things, and by all means, not better things, because I'm sure Celtic gave him the best years of his career to date at the moment.
Yeah, it's difficult, but you have to be realistic. You have to understand what we are, and in order for us to enjoy these players, ultimately we have to let them go. Otherwise, they would never come to the club. Yeah. So, a bit of a catch-22.
Yeah, it's a hard exterior to have as a football fan, by all means. But I mean, look, me leading on to the next segment. Obviously, we've been going for an hour already, and like I said, there's no rush for us to finish this episode by all means. But let's move on to your cinch Premiership team of the season. Now, personally speaking, there is only one player that I would replace from that Celtic side that we went through just now. I mean, by all means, like I haven't followed the cinch Premiership season in season, the whole season, and to really observe the other teams around Scotland, but I know there's one player that I would replace in the Celtic 11 that we just named between us. And just courtesy because of the top goal scorer, I'd replace Kyogo with Lawrence Shanklin, personally speaking.
Well, I will give you my team, and then we can.
Well, why don't we go for your team? This is like I said, this is me personally speaking. Let's hear your cinch Premiership team of the season.
Yeah. So in goal.
Yep.
I don't think there's any argument here, as much as it unfortunately pains me to say it. And Jack Butland
Okay.
Has been the best keeper in the league by some way. Been fantastic for them. Made big saves. I don't really think there can be much of an argument. At right back, now there probably could be an argument from the other side of Glasgow, but I don't reward penalty taking.
No. We're not even having this. We're not having this debacle. Johnston's going in.
Yeah, Alistair Johnson there. I have a centre-back partnership of Frankie Kent and Lewis Mayo. Frankie Kent, obviously, for Hearts, who have had a fantastic season, finished third.
Yep.
And he's been ever-present. I think he's been fantastic. And Lewis Mayo at Kilmarnock. Anyone that follows Scottish football in any capacity, I don't think that they would be too shocked that Lewis Mayo's in there. I think he's had a fantastic season as well. Left back, Owen Beck.
Owen Beck. This is a man that you were crying out for Liverpool to, well, even for Celtic, to try and construct a deal and bring him in as a competition for Greg Taylor at the very least. But he, of course, renewed his time there at Dundee.
Yeah, and Dundee have had a fantastic season, obviously finishing in the top six.
Got a crucial 0-0 draw with Rangers, so yeah.
And yeah, they've had a great season, and I think he's been a massive part of that and deserves the recognition. So my formation is a bit lopsided because there's certain people I needed to fit in, and anyone. There's going to be, if there is anyone listening, that I'm sure they call me out and say, but those players don't play in those positions. Well, they just needed to be in the team, all right? So calm yourself down.
Well, hang on. So if you were to set a formation for this team, what would you set?
So 4-2-1, I guess, playing that sort of
1-2-1.
Playing like that. He's kind of centre attack mid, centre forward because he's a striker. So he'll play up and then it's lopsided, but it's what I've gone with. Haters gonna hate. Look, centre midfield, Matt O'Reilly. We've waxed lyrical about him. He's there. The other centre midfielder is again a Dundee player, Luke McCowan, who's had a fantastic season at Dundee. I think I've seen that he's scored the most goals that a Dundee player has ever scored. And again, look, Dundee they've had a fantastic season. I'm going to caveat this and say I'm really sorry to St Mirren fans if there is any listening. You have had an amazing season as well. You have. And I was looking at centre back, and I was trying to work out whether I was going to put Gogic in, but I just think Frankie Kent and Lewis Mayo have had better seasons. I was looking at centre midfield, and I was thinking, do I put Mark O'Hara in? Again, I just think that Matt O'Reilly's obviously gone in, and Luke McCowan for me's had a better season.
Like I said, these are our ratings. These are our ratings. Like we probably looked on social media and seen team of the seasons across the board from different pages, different channels, and we've gone like, why the fuck is that guy in there?
Yeah, but. To spoil it, there isn't a St Mirren player in there. Sorry.
Yeah.
So Matt O'Reilly, Luke McCowan, and then this is the kind of centre attack mid, centre forward. It'd be more kind of centre forward. It's Bojan Majowski, the Aberdeen striker.
Yeah. Good shout.
Good player. And then completing the front three on the right wing, Danny Armstrong from Kilmarnock. Again, fantastic season.
Oh, you've gone with a 4-2-1-3.
Yeah,
mate, that could be revolutionising to Football Manager players. You know what I mean? Like,
so Danny Armstrong on the right.
I've been trying to do the Thiago Motta tactic for the last couple of days. 2-7-2 with Luton Town.
That is something else.
And by all means, I'm sitting second in the Premier League table, so
so Danny Armstrong on the right, Abdallah Sima on the left. Yeah, fantastic.
Hearts player, isn't he?
No, he's a Rangers player. Abdallah Sima.
Abdallah Sima.
The boy on loan from Brighton.
Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah, go on, continue.
Scored bucket load of goal in the first half of the season. Picked up a few knocks, but I think he's outside of Butland probably been their best player this season. And then up top, Lawrence Shankland. I don't think the argument there. The goals that he scored for Hearts, and he's led them to a third place finish. So that is my SPFL team of the season.
Very good one as well.
So honourable mentions, like I said, Gogic, Blair Spittle, and Theo Bear, that obviously play at Motherwell. I think they've had good seasons. Blair Spittle going to Hearts. Pretty much agreed. I'm not sure if it's finalised, but it's Theo Bear, 13 league goals for Motherwell. Got to see him in live action on the last day of the season. Didn't have his best day, but good player. Jan Danda, Ross County.
Yeah, Jan Danda, Jack Hunt.
I think he's had a cracking season. He is going to Hearts. That one's done and dusted, and obviously him and
Hearts, is he?
Yeah, him and Simon Murray. Using all their powers to make sure that County survive, dispatching of Wraith Rovers. And my other honourable mention was Adam Idah, because just enjoy speaking about him at the moment.
Just enjoy speaking about him. Adam Idah, you better like this fucking pod, mate, because we've spoken about you quite a lot, mate. But we love you as well. All right, let's move on, because this has been, by all means, like I said, there's no rush. We've dedicated an hour and 20 minutes, near enough, to the to the Cinch Premiership and to Celtic. I thought next we could move on to the Championship. We had the playoff final yesterday between Leeds and Southampton. It was a very conflicting fixture for myself. Being a Cardiff fan, we hate Leeds as much as the rest of the English Football League does, but Southampton are managed by Russell Martin, Mr. fucking Ryland himself, and so I was leaning more towards Leeds because they have such a strong Welsh allegiance in their side right now. They have on the books the likes of Joe Rodon, Ethan Ampadu, Tyler Roberts is still there, Dan James. And so I was really heavily backing them in courtesy of the Welsh players. But unfortunately, they have had a poor run at Wembley, and that continued yesterday as they came up short to Southampton by 1-0, which sees Southampton make an instant return to the Premier League, joining alongside the likes of Leicester and Ipswich Town. I didn't watch the game, unfortunately, because I was occupied by... I'm not going to go into it, but I was occupied for an hour by someone who I did not expect. It was by my partner's dad's neighbour, who just would not stop fucking talking and let me go home. And so I missed the game, unfortunately. I don't know if you caught the game yourself, Mayhem.
Watch the second half of it.
Yeah.
So I'd missed, obviously, Adam Armstrong giving Southampton the lead, and witnessed Dan James rattling the crossbar towards the end of the game. But from what I had seen, and obviously picking up on what the commentators, it sounded a lot like Leeds hadn't had their best day and hadn't really, hurt Southampton enough. No real sort of big glaring gilt-edged chance. Like I said, Dan James did rattle the crossbar, but it wasn't like cutting, it wasn't a through ball, cutting them open. It was sort of edge of the box, a great strike that rattles the bar. So it sounded like the team on the day that deserved to win got the job done.
Yeah. No, I absolutely agree. But by all means, I feel next season, Leeds have no excuse but to run away with the Championship. By all means, I know Daniel Farke will keep his place at the helm. I feel the teams that are going down from the Premier League won't be as good as Leeds are right now. Burnley, of course, are on the brink of losing Vincent Kompany to Bayern Munich, according to speculation. Sheffield United, I don't see as a threat at all. They most likely will be up there in, playoff contention, by all means. Luton, will again be the same if they manage to maintain any quality they've got in their books. But I fully expect Leeds to completely run away with the Championship title next season. And yeah, no, it was surprising to me. Like, of course, you know, records speak for themselves, and Leeds haven't got a good record at Wembley, and I don't know if that came into play with their performance, but it was something that I kind of expected, but didn't expect at the same time. It was always going to be a decisive game and between fine margins, and Russell Martin and Southampton took that opportunity, and Adam Armstrong with the decisive goal, and they kept that lead for a good 65-70 minutes.
Yeah, that said, unfortunately, it looked like Leeds didn't, you know, for whatever reason, possess all of their attacking faculties that they normally do. Certainly, when you look back at the second leg of the playoff semi-final and the way that they absolutely dispatched Norwich, it looked nothing like that. So, congrats to Southampton. We'll
Massive
say Southampton as a
congratulations,
club.
Southampton. Fuck you, Russell Martin. I still hate you.
And we will swerve very quickly onto the Cardiff City ratings to get
Cardiff
to
City
jump
ratings.
into this.
Here we go. Like, I mean, I didn't actually put ratings in for Cardiff right now. Like, I mean, I've got my team of the season for the Championship, but I think with the Cardiff one, like, I wanted to sort of give myself a bit of thought behind the players that you gave me.
I am not as well prepared as you. So what I'm going to do is pull up a fixture that I believe you'd have played a full strength squad in it. They're in a 4-2-3-1.
Yeah, no worries.
And then I'll adjust some players accordingly. The likes of in this David Turnbull starting, but I'll replace him with Ruben Colwell like that. But starting in goal, we have Ethan Horvath.
He, personally, in my opinion, I think he was the best piece of business we managed to pull off in January. I mean, looking at his portfolio, he had previously last season achieved promotion with Luton. Unfortunately, he was replaced by Thomas Kaminski at Luton, and obviously being on the books at Forest, he couldn't really find a club elsewhere until January, and thankfully we managed to acquire his services. And like I said, I think he's really matched up to his reputation and his portfolio. I think he's come in, he's got that mentality of knowing what it means to get promotion, and has been a very, very durable force within the side, and he has given us some fantastic moments in that second half of the season, and has become a bit of a fan favourite himself as well. And I think that speaks volumes itself. Like, I think the fans who are there on the day and really appreciate what he has done for the club, I've been very, very appreciative of having him at the club, and especially when Jack Hannock has, at that time, he suffered an injury that was going to keep him out for months. And so for him to come in and really fill that void was always going to be a big task, and he did that incredibly well. And so for Ethan Horvath, I'm going to give him a 7 out of 10.
We are going to go for right back. I think this is a slam dunk. Perry NG.
10 out of 10. 10
player
out
of the season.
My player of the season, Cardiff's player of the season, Cardiff's player of the season. I love this guy so much, and I think this is why I asked you that question earlier in terms of, like, how do you deal with losing such an influential player at Celtic, because I had that same vibe off of Perry Ng. He came in from Crewe 2-3 seasons ago. He's developed, he's cemented himself in the side, and it took a lot of adjusting with him, like in terms of where he played best. Like we've played him in the back three as a centre back, we played him as an attacking fullback in a 3-5-2 at one point, and I mean we know, like, just let him have that right side and he'll cook, and that's what he does. He's a fantastic set piece taker. He's had his highest scoring season as a player this season, and I'm pretty sure he was most likely our top scorer of this season, which speaks volumes itself, being a right back. And he's one of those old-fashioned players that you don't get nowadays. Like, he has no social media, he doesn't have TikTok, he doesn't have X, he doesn't have Twitter, all that shit. He doesn't have any social media where if we lose a game, he gets on it and goes, like, so unhappy with the result today, we move on to next week, 5 emojis, forward on. Like, he's just, I don't know, he's one of those old style players that you get, like, where he plays for the badge week in, week out. And I absolutely adore the bloke. I 100% adore the bloke, and he's one of the best players we've had on our books for years. And so, rightfully so, I'm giving him a 10 out of 10. He's going to attract interest from Premier League clubs this summer. If we manage to retain him, I'd be heavily surprised. But by all means, if he does go on to move into the Premier League, like, I can strongly picture Ipswich going in for him, because I feel that's an area in their squad that they can improve. Having Leif Davis on the left, Perry on the right, like, it sounds like a dream to me. And so, if we manage to keep hold of him, it'd be fantastic. But if he does move on to a Premier League club, then you go with my best wishes, Perry, and thank you for everything that you give to our club. And I love you. I'll miss you, and I'm speaking not just on my behalf, I'm speaking on my partner's behalf, because she loves you for that time you went in goal against Bristol last season. So there it is. Perry, you're a legend.
There we go. The declaration of love, player of the season, 10 out of 10. Next up, Dimitris Gutas.
Oh, he was, again, when Errol Bullock came in, he made a lot of fantastic, against the circumstances that we had to work against, where we were under an embargo, where we couldn't pay a transfer fee for a player, we couldn't pay a loan fee for a player unless parent clubs would allow us to loan them without having to pay wages. Dimi Gutas was available on a free, and he came in, and he is the only player, I believe, at Cardiff who managed to play all 46 games in the Championship last season. And based off of that, he's been ever present. He's obviously had his hiccups, as a lot of defenders do, and so I've got to give a little bit of leeway for that. But he's been ever present. He's chipped in with a few goals, and I do feel he's really got that leadership trait about him as well. He's been a huge figure for us this season, and he had that sentimental goal that he scored away at Loftus Road in the new year, in the passing of his, I think it was his grandfather he lost, and the emotion that that really run through him at that point really goes to show that he's that sort of player that we need at this club. Like, we really need characters like that at this club who just really feel the emotion and the effect of what this club produces. And I'm a big fan of Gutas. I love Dimi Gutas, and I think he's been a huge factor in our team finishing where we did this season, and I'm going to give him an 8 out of 10.
8, okay. This one, you may stand to correct me, but I mean, I just couldn't bear you talking about Nat Phillips in any kind of
Oh,
positive
you
light.
went for McGuinness,
So
didn't you?
yeah, so I've gone for Mark McGuinness.
Mark McGuinness. That was always going to be a conflicting one because obviously for the second half of the season we had Nat Phillips next to Gutas, but Mark McGuinness is a player who we had to send out on loan to, obviously for further development purposes. He came back and he just went up another level. And I think, in a sense, we missed him a lot going into that second half of the season. He was a lot more robust. I'm not disrespecting Nat Phillips. If you were to put Nat Phillips in this team right now, I would have given him a 7.5 because of the number of crucial moments he managed to produce in the game in games going forward. But Mark McGuinness, I feel him and Gutas is the way forward. I feel he's excellent in terms of tracking back because he does like to push up a little bit. Extremely physical as a centre back as you need, and Cardiff is the first club that has really given him an opportunity at really achieving in his footballing career. He was on the books at Arsenal, who was in the under-23s and was never going to get a look in. And obviously, you look at Arsenal centre-backs nowadays, there's no chance he was going to get anyway past the likes of Saliba and Gabriel and Kivior. So the fact that Mick McCarthy gave him an opportunity, and I stand by it, it's the best piece of business that McCarthy's managed to pull off in his Cardiff tenure. And I'm a big fan of Mark McGuinness, but unfortunately he did miss the second part of the season. But I was a big fan of him up to December, and for that reason, and got to be logical about it, I've got to give him a 6.5 out of 10.
Okay. So then rolling on to left back, which for some reason appeared to be a lot harder to pin down who goes in at left back. I guess you've had a lot of people play left back.
No, we've had no one play left back bar one.
Okay.
If I'm honest.
If
I'm perfectly honest, there's only one player.
I mean, the squad lineups that I've seen say different, but you tell me who your left back is then.
Jamie Lou Collins.
All right, yeah, he was one that was there. I've seen, like I said, I clicked on a few, and there was Josh Wilson-Esbrand, I think, that was playing the last game of the season.
Yeah. That's the only contender for left back, if I'm honest. And so I can understand.
I did see a game where Perry and G was playing left back. I don't know if you can rate him twice.
So what about a 10 for Perry and G, mate? Plays anyway, Gaffer.
So,
no, I think there was definitely one or two games where we had no choice but to play Perry left back because that's how limited we have been in that department. We loaned Joe Bagan out at the start of the season out to Belgium to, well, ironically, one of Vincent Tan's clubs that he has a part ownership in. So we didn't have him on our books this season, which was a shame because I felt that he thrived a little bit the previous season under Sabri Lamucci and Steve Morrison and Mark Hudson. But we felt that loaning him out was... Imagine that, naming 3 managers there in that one. Christ. But I'm a big fan of Joel Bagan, personally. But going into this season, the only left back that we've had at our disposal is JC. And this is an individual who suffered a season-ending injury the previous season. And he came in, and he was just... he was different gravy, he was, Joel, honestly. Unfortunately, he suffered I think he tore his ACL and that ruled him out for the remainder of the 22-23 season. And so he came in, and when you suffer an injury like that, you're never going to be the same player. You're never going to be as robust, as agile, as quick on the ball. Like it's not going to happen. And that's the case with Jamie Collins. I felt really bad for him as well, because he was really the only left back on our books at the time, because Callum O'Dowda, who we can deploy as left back, had suffered an injury at the start of the season as well, which ruled him out for 6 months. And so he was all that we could rely on, unless it then got to the point where we had to play Perry out left and then bring in Marlon Romeo at right back. And we were so dependent on him, and by all means he had his purple patches throughout the season. I thought in the game against the Jacks he was absolutely phenomenal. Like, he provided the assist for Ollie Tanner for the first goal at the Cardiff City Stadium against Swansea. He got his first goal for the club later on in the season against Norwich, which was a crucial equaliser. Unfortunately, went on to lose that game 3-1. But I've always had a soft spot for JC, but at the same time, he's not the same player that I first saw in the Cardiff shirt. In the first 2-3 games, the way he would take on wingers and fullbacks and be able to track back and make a challenge, like, he was the complete package when we got him. But now he's only half of that. And so, courtesy of that, and I'm going to be a little bit sympathetic in my rating, because I would have given him a 5 out of 10 this season, but I'm going to give him a 5.5.
Okay. So like I said, we're moving into midfield. It's a 4-2-3-1. I'm going to go for one that I'm pretty sure has been in the team quite a lot. The other one, I'm almost sure he has been, although we wish we were talking about another certain person in this midfield. Unfortunately, he twilighted at the back of the 2023 with a magical moment in Cardiff, and hasn't really been seen again. You'll obviously know what I'm talking about, and we'll explain that if anyone is confused a little bit later. But on the right side, Ryan Wintle.
Yeah, I think he's had a difficult season. I think with the likes of Siopis coming in, Aaron Ramsey coming in. I mean, I know that Aaron Ramsey we know what we expected of Aaron Ramsey when he came in. He was only really going to play a small percentage of the season, and so that really dwindled Ryan's opportunities in that midfield. But I've always liked Ryan Wintle. There's been times where I've been critical of him, only because I have high expectations of him. Like a lot of players, like I know what these players are capable of, and in that sense, like, I have high expectations of them. Ryan Wintle, I felt, was cut out the side a fair bit at one point, but had come in and played a huge part in the latter stages of the season, especially in that huge game against Ipswich Town, where there was still that opportunity to make that late push for the playoffs, and he got that big equaliser for us. And like, again, he's one of those players who he plays for the badge, and I expect nothing more from any player on the books at Cardiff. And I've been a huge admirer of Ryan Wintle, and I think he's put in some very durable performances this season. But I still want to see more, if that makes sense. I want to see more. I want to really identify what his key position is in the side, because I see that Errol Bullitt is related to me a little bit as well, in terms of, do we play him as number 10? Do we play him in the midfield as number 8 alongside Siopis or Joe Rules? Do we play him as a deep lying midfielder where he sits in front of the back line? We don't know. we really don't know, and we're still trying to work that out. But I know as soon as he comes on, like, I'm expecting a good performance. He knows how to really push the team forward, and he's a very forward-thinking player as well. So he's not one of those who will kill momentum in an attacking scenario, and so I'm gonna give him a 6 out of 10. 6 out of 10 for Ryan Wintle.
And then next to him, Manolis Siopis.
Yeah. Just like Gutas, I think he was one of the best piece of business that we managed to pull off in the summer. He is something that we have lacked in the midfield for a very long time, who is just, I mean, as small as he is very, very mobile on the ball, breaks up play really well. Like, he's got traits of N'Golo Kante, but by all means nowhere near the level of N'Golo Kante, if that makes sense. But just the way he moves on the ball, like his body language, his character, he's a cult hero at the club, if I'm honest, because he's got such a big character towards him. And I'm quite gutted that he didn't get himself on the score sheet this season. I thought he really deserved it, and again, he's one of those players that I've got high standards for, because he is a special player. He's a really special player, Manny Siopis. Unfortunately, along the way, he had a bit of he had a few mishaps in certain games that were important to us, and proved to be vital for our position in the Championship table. But I'm a huge fan of Siopis, and I really hope that if we manage to strengthen this team going forward, it will excel him to be even better than what he is right now. But I think he's had a fantastic season at Cardiff. I think he's a huge key player for us in this project going forward. As long as Vincent Tan backs Errol Bullitt in this project, we'll see more of Manny Siopis. I guarantee it. And based off of that, I'm gonna give him a 7 out of 10.
7, okay. So we'll do 3 across the front then.
Yep.
So the right wing, centre attack mid, and left mid. We'll talk maybe unconventionally about centre attack mid first, just because we were hoping at the start of the season we'd be waxing lyrical about Aaron Ramsey.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
And unfortunately, that hasn't transpired. Aaron Ramsey's demons from the past have caught up with him, and we know that he has had injury problems. There's been a few people that have played in that role. However, obviously signed David Turnbull from ourselves in January. I think because I'm trying to place a Cardiff City team of the season. I think that is probably, in my opinion, obviously I watch highlights, I don't watch all the games, but certainly someone that would potentially have been pushing Perry and G for the player of the season. Maybe if he'd have been a little bit more ever present, he may have got there. But for the person I would play in that 10 role, and correct me if I'm wrong, Ruben Colwill.
Yeah, 100% agree. Ruben Colwill has been, by all means, our best attacking outlet this season. I think he has vastly improved under Errol Bullitt. I think his work rate has gone up by a good 100%. That was a big frustration I had with Ruben Colwill, was his tracking back, his will to really win that ball back if he did lose it in the final third, to track back and win that ball back. He has gone up another level this year, and this is the Ruben Colwill that I want. But what he needs to do now, and it's such a shame that I'm saying this because I said this in season 2 of the Football Booth, this is his season to cement his place in that side.
Mm-hmm.
Only because, I mean, obviously we had different factors of of course, Aaron Ramsey coming into the club, and so his place was under threat. Our doubts of whether he's going to be fit or not, because he had multiple injury concerns at the start of the season and the season prior. But he's really stepped up big time, massively stepped up, and this man can produce fantastic moments out of nothing. If we go back to the Bristol City game at Cardiff, where he does a little ball roll, little step over, dinks it between two players, and then rifles it into the roof of the net. That is Ruben Colwill in his prime. Like that's what he can produce. And if there's anyone that I've got in this squad that I've got high expectations of and high standards of, it's him. It's him, 100%. This is the guy who, on his day, can be as influential as Gareth Bale can be for Wales. That's how much I've got so much faith in him. But he's got to do it on a consistent basis. And like I said, he's been the best attacking outlet that we had. And that really sort of speaks volumes for the rest of our attacking players we had on our ranks this previous season. But Ruben Colwill, I've been very impressed with him this season. He has given us some big moments. I'm going to give him a 7.5 out of 10.
7.5. Okay. We're going to move over to the right.
I know what's coming.
Unfortunately, I don't think really that there's anyone else that I can put in. I'd love to give you the chance to speak about that glorious night at the Cardiff City Stadium and the exploits of Ollie Tanner on that day.
I know. Well, to be honest, I don't think he'd get a high rating himself either.
But still, it would be nice. We've kind of snuck it in anyway. But he hasn't really done much since that. So we do, I think, have to go with Josh Bowler. There's that pause.
5 out of 10, because it's been in the middle, if that makes sense. Like I watched this guy game in, game out for Blackpool the previous season, and this is a team that struggled to stay up in the Championship, but he was the reason that they made a valiant effort in terms of staying up. And so when we got him in from Forest on loan, I thought, wow, what a player we got on our books. Like, real serious baller, and we got on our books, and he had a good start. Like, he put us 1-0 up against Leeds on the opening day of the season. But he was just he just lacked so much confidence going forward.
Mm-hmm.
And he was so naive taking on fullbacks, and like, it breaks my heart to say this because I know how good he really is, Josh Bowler. And he wasn't the same player as he was at Blackpool. He gave us, again, he's one of those players that gave us moments, and he had purple patches in the season. He scored a fantastic goal at Vicarage Road against Watford. He obviously, by all means, he puts 1-0 up at Ellen Road, which was always going to be a tough challenge and a tough start for us going into the Championship season. But he never really hit the ground running for us, and yeah, I can only give him a 5 out of 10 because I've got to be generous in the sense of that he scored big goals and important goals for us, but he's not the same. He wasn't the same player as he was at Blackpool, and I expected so much better from him, so I'm going to give him a 5 out of 10.
Okay. We go to the left, and a player that I really like at Cardiff is Idah. However, he's been riddled with injury, and that's been a shame because I honestly think he's a fantastic player. So I think And again, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I think, obviously, I think he's playing a little bit out of position, but I think at left wing, I guess it would be Carlon Grant.
Yeah, yeah, no, I absolutely agree with you. Like, I'm a huge fan of Calamadalda, but unfortunately, due to injury, he hasn't featured as much as we wanted to, and so Errol Bullitt brought Colin Grant in, and that's where we deployed him. And again, he's one of those players where you've got to use him in a particular way. And the left flank isn't quite his position. I'm a big fan of Colin Grant. We've seen him perform at other clubs in the likes of Huddersfield and West Brom. Like, this guy's a goal scorer. This guy's good when you get him in front of goal. When you play him out wide in a system where you're there to support other attacking players to score goals, he's not that player. He really isn't that player. But he's got the work ethic for it. By all means, he worked his bollocks off this season. Absolutely worked his bollocks off this season. And if you offered me Colin Grant at the end of his contract, which he is at the end of his contract, I think we should do everything in our power to get him in. But we can't play him left wing because he's wasted there. He's absolutely wasted there. The best position for Colin Grant is at number 10 or as a number 9 because that's where he thrives. Left wing, there's games where he goes missing too much. Unless you utilise him in a certain way, you're not going to get the best out of him. But I've liked him a lot this season. I've really liked Colin Grant. He's been a big favourite of mine. And like I said, he scored big goals when we needed them. He's, again, very in touch with the fan base. And so for that reason, I'm going to give him a 7 out of 10.
Okay. Let me move up top.
This is probably going to be the toughest position you're going to pick here.
I'm going to do something, I think that's a little rogue.
A little rogue?
Look, the obvious choice here is Mayte. He played, I think, when I was looking, 38 games. He has been the ever-present beanstalk, static motherfucker at the top of the field, not doing a lot. So I'm going to go for a player that appeared 20 times. Wasn't spectacular either until he arrived back at his parent club, where he's not really... He had a purple patch when he landed back there and he hasn't really done anything much. But I think if I'm picking a team of the season, I can't put a striker in that's only scored 2 goals. I can't do that. I could maybe if he'd got 12 assists, but he doesn't.
Well, if you put Yaku Mayte there, I would have given him 2 out of 10 anyway, courtesy of the goals he scored, because he's produced nothing.
I'm instead going to put in someone that said he probably won't get much higher, but I think the best striker that Cardiff have had, and you haven't had many good ones this season, would be Ugbo.
Uke Ugbo. You know what? I didn't expect that name to come up, and I'm glad you brought him up at the same time as well. Like, you kind of caught me off guard a little bit here, but Uke Ugbo, I think he was... I don't think the system fit him in a way. I'm a big fan of... again, we've seen him go to Sheffield Wednesday, and he scored a matter of goals in a matter of games. And he's got a real eye for goal, Uke Ugbo. I think he gets himself in the right place at the right time, and he's a good finisher. But again, he's one of those players that you've got to utilise in the right way. Unfortunately for Cardiff, we didn't utilise him in the right way. And like I said, opening day of the season, he got himself on the score sheet, and I had high hopes for him. I really did have high hopes for him, and And then, like, just watching the games going forward, it was just like he was so. And again, in the Championship, where you're going against big physical centre backs and defenders, and the way we were using him when we're trying to play him off the last man, it just didn't work for him at all. It really didn't. And I felt really bad for Ugbo because I would have loved to have kept him for the whole season. But for whatever reason, Bullet thought, well, we'll terminate his loan and we'll bring in Yaku Mate 2.0 and Famara Jeju. And I think that was probably the worst decision Errol Bullet has made all season, because Ugbo offered a different dimension to our attack and we really lacked that towards the second half of the season. And we saw him go for Sheffield Wednesday to, I think he scored like 4 goals in 5 games when he first joined. And so I think that spoke volumes in itself, and I felt lacking that different dimension proved to be vital for us. And so, like I said, I was a big fan of Ugbo, and he scored some important goals for us. And so I'm going to give him, again, a little bit generous, I'm going to give him a 5 out of 10.
5, which I think, when I was looking at the team, I think that's maybe the highest that any of them would got. Obviously, you'd said that Yakamete would only got a 2, Famara Jeju, is it?
Famara Jeju, I would have given 2 as well, courtesy of the goals he scored. He scored 2 goals, I'm giving him a 2 out of 10. That was it.
Obviously, you've got Robbo that had his injury problems, and for whatever reason, Bullet maybe didn't seem to warm to him. Playing.
Yeah, he was a tough one, Robbo, because I've always rated him as a player, but something didn't seem to add up mid-season. I mean, I think, it was when we played Sheffield Wednesday in the FA Cup, and we got battered. We got absolutely battered in the FA Cup, and we don't show up to cup games at all. But just watching the way Robbo played and his work ethic, I felt something wasn't really adding up. And I don't know if that was the sense of that he was frustrated with the game time he was getting under Errol Bullet. I didn't know it was in the sense of that he was linked with move away. Like, there was so many elements to it, and I couldn't put my finger on in terms of why he was underperforming in that game. And like, even every chance he got, like, he didn't look to make the right choice in terms of that attacking scenario where he play it across to someone and then we have a good chance of scoring. Like, he was going for goal constantly. And so again, Robbo was one that I was very disappointed in, because I've always spoke highly of him. I've always said that he should start. I always felt that he should be at the very least, he should be our number 10, if not number 9 going forward, because he's got that eye for goal.
Yeah, and then obviously we'll land on some honourable mentions. You can rattle through them the way that I did. I think it's only fair. We've named every other striker, so we'll give you Kian Atete as one to have a little chat about. Aaron Ramsey and Joe Rules. Obviously, Rulesy, massive servant to Cardiff City, so it would be remiss of us not to give him a little bit of a shout out. And then we'll finish on, I think there was such a kind of swapping of the guard in terms of goal in goal, and obviously Jack Anik picked up a knock, but we'll give you some time there. So Jack Anik, Rulesy, Ramsey, and Atete.
Jack Anik, again, he was one that was ever present before Ethan Horvath came in. Again, he's got his own chant with the Cardiff City faithful, and he was ever present for us. And I like Jack Anik. I think he was a really good free signing for us from St Mirren. Again, big fan of him. Struggled to get into the team last season, and he really stepped up and proved to be the first choice for us at the time. And again, pulled off some very important saves for us. And for that reason, I'm going to give him a 6 out of 10.
6. Okay.
Joe
And
Rulesy. Where is it? Where is it?
then...
There it is. Happy Christmas, Morgan. Hey, there it is. Mwah. Love you, Rulesy. 7 out of 10. No words.
Rambo.
Rambo. Rambo. He scored against the Jacks, so I'm going to give him a 20 out of 10. No, I'm joking. No, Ramsey in the first 2 months at the club, like, when he first came back, like, this was, again, I was buzzing that he came back to the club. Absolutely buzzing. You know, it was one of those homecoming heroes when he returned. Didn't think it was going to happen. Obviously, we had the excitement and everything that went around the Gareth Bale saga last season. And so when the Aaron Ramsey rumours crept in, I felt like, is it really going to happen? Is he really going to come back to Cardiff, or is he going to go to Saudi and basically set his family up for life? And the fact that he chose to come home for family purposes, he wanted to come back to Cardiff, he wanted to be close to his family and his relatives, I think that really spoke volumes of the kind of player he is. And not even if it was not on the pitch, he was going to be a big figure in the dressing room, on the training ground. He was going to be a huge figure for us and the football club. And Aaron Ramsey will forever have a special place in my heart. Like, I absolutely adore the bloke. I love everything he's done in his career. Like, he made the right step up at the right time. He went on and achieved multiple accolades in his career, and I'm proud of how far he's come. Like, there was me sitting at Wembley Stadium when we went to the FA Cup semi-final and the final in 2008, and I watched him come on against Barnsley in the semi-final. I watched him come on in the final against Portsmouth. He's grown so much, and I'm, again, this is going to sound very sentimental, but I'm so proud of the career he's had, and it was so unfortunate that it was cut short of a long-term injury when he suffered that broken leg in that Stoke game. And there's no aggrievement against Ryan Shawcross. Like, he's a footballer himself, and he's playing in the Premier League. He's playing in the most competitive league in the world, and there's no way you could sit there and blame Ryan Shawcross for what happened. Like, I have no animosity towards him, and like I said, it was just purely for the love of football, and what happened had happened. And Ramsey came back. He came back strong. He had a fantastic season in the 2013-14 season, where the first 6 months he was banging in goals left, right, and centre for Arsenal. And I'm talking overall as a Welsh player, for a player that represents my country and now for my club again. Like, it really meant a lot, him coming back, and he played a big part for us in those 2 months. Can you imagine that? No, but Aaron Ramsey, I'm gonna give a 6.5 out of 10.
6.5. And in one word, and then I'll leave you to tell me your Championship team of the season. I think we'll probably end on that.
Yeah.
In one word, Keanu Tete.
Keanu Tete, I've had massive faith in him for the last 2 seasons. Unfortunately, this season he was again disrupted by injuries. I still feel that he has a lot to offer, but when you've had 2 seasons at the club, you've really got to step up now. You've really got to cement your place in the side. You can't afford. I mean, of course, injuries is going to happen, fatigue is going to happen. I understand that, but you've got to be that player in that first 11 to think like, shit, we can't afford to rest him. We really can't. And I feel that on his day, for his height, for his physique, he is one of the best strikers on the ball in the Championship when he wants to be. Unfortunately, he doesn't do it on a consistent basis. And so there's games where he'll receive a long ball, he'll take it down, he'll either thread through a winger or an overlapping player, and he'll be a massive nuisance. He'll drag players away from him because obviously he's a big figure, he's an aerial threat, and so naturally Championship players are going to be drawn to him, and he can lay that ball off to another attacking outlet that we have. But unfortunately, he hasn't quite done that on a consistent basis this season, and I would have liked him to have scored more goals. He scored quite a few goals in the latter stages of the previous season under Sabri Lamucci, but it's not been quite the same this season under Errol Bullitt, and so unfortunately I've got to give him a 4 out of 10.
Grand. That concludes the player ratings. Take us home, Morg. Let us hear your Championship team of the season.
Championship team of the season, of course. I have gone with a 4-2-3-1 formation based off of the players that I put in. And there may be 1 or 2 positions that people may disagree with, and I don't care because it's my team of the season, so suck your mum. So, goalkeeper, I thought it was logical to go with because they won the Championship, and I think they had the most clean sheets in the end. I'm going to go for Mads Hermansson for Leicester. Right back, a lot of people went for Kyle Walker-Peters, but being a bluebird, I went for Perry Ng. I went for a centre-back partnership, and I went for Jacob Greaves of Hull City. I think he's been a monumental figure for Hull this season. And the other centre-back I went for was, well, this is a player that I have always been indecisive in terms of what his best position is, but I felt he's thrived for Leeds this season in that position. I'm going to go for Ethan Ampadu.
Mm-hmm. I thought you would have one of them too, whether it was Joe Rodon or
Yeah. It was. It really was. But Ampadu, for whatever he has a little bit more than Joe Rodon does. He
that leadership, that captain mentality.
Exactly, absolutely. Yeah. And so that's why he got in. Left back, there was no question about it. Leif Davis from Ipswich, 100%. Yeah. And he's one of those players who's going to attract multiple interest from multiple clubs in the Premier League, if not abroad, because of how brilliant he was.
I think he'll stay, though. Kieran McKenna snubbing Man United by the looks of things, ready to sign a long-term deal with Ipswich. Obviously, Chelsea now looking like they're chasing down the Leicester boss, Enzo. I always get his name wrong. Maresca. So, with McKenna staying, I think that will inspire a lot of the Ipswich boys to sign up for at least one more year. So I think Leif Davis will be playing in blue next season.
Rightfully so. Rightfully so. Like I said, he's been. I think he's arguably been Ipswich's best player this season. I think he's been absolutely unbelievable. talk about like Andy Robertson vibes, João Cancelo vibes in the Championship. Like he has been unbelievable. He's probably my favourite player in this lineup. And then going into central midfield, I've gone for, again, a bit of a hot take. I've gone for Gabriel Sara for Norwich. I think he's been Norwich's one of their best outlets in their team. Like, a lot of people will turn to Josh Sargent, and he would probably be in my honourable mentions, but I think Gabriel Sara has been influential throughout the season. And then alongside him, I think there's no question about it, I'm going to go for Kiernan Dewsbury-Hall. And then going into the attacking three, I'm going to start from the left side. And this is a guy that I think he started to hit the ground running towards the latter stages of the Premier League before they got relegated. But then he's just excelled in the Championship this season. I'm going to go for Sarincho Somerville from Leeds.
Yeah, I mean, it's same as Leaf at left back. That left side was kind of locked. Yeah. It should be locked in everybody's team of the season. You know, that left-sided centre mid, Dewsbury Hall, you know, Leaf and Somerville. I'd be surprised if there was many people moving away from that are being, you know, completely impartial. Yeah, super player.
Yeah, no, absolutely influential for Leeds this season.
It'll be really interesting to see if they hold on to him, because I think not getting promoted comes with certain financial issues,
repercussions, and financial repercussions, of course.
I think he's shown he's a level above, and again, someone like an Ipswich, someone like a Leicester, or even, you know, maybe like a Bournemouth, you know, Everton, even maybe, you know, these clubs that are at the lower end. That may really fancy saying, look, do you fancy a taste of the Premier League, and probably having to pay that sort of 20-25 million kind of generic Championship fee. But fantastic.
And it will, I mean, if there was a Premier League team to show interest, like, that will be the quoted fee. Like, I mean, we've seen it in the past with Gini Wijnaldum, for example, to go to Liverpool, where he went for, what was it, £25 million. Like, he will be, you know, his stock will be very high from the Championship, and by all means, like, it will cost a pretty penny for any club that going in for him to really pay up. And so, but moving on to that, on the right wing, this is a player that I was very reluctant to put in, but I had to put my personal opinions aside. I've had to go with Morgan Whittaker. I've had to go for him because I think the output he's had this season is just
pivotal to Plymouth staying up.
Yeah, absolutely. That's it. And it's hard to disregard that. Like, I would have loved to have put Connor Chaplin or Nathan Broadhead above him, but the numbers speak for themselves, and I feel Morgan Whittaker really deserves his spot in that team of the season. Absolutely.
Again, another player that I would expect to be on the move in the summer after his season.
Absolutely. Oh yeah, no, definitely would, and especially as a England international as well. I think he will attract a lot of interest from, again, Premier League, whether it's abroad, even if it's Saudi as well. You never know nowadays. You know, like, there'll be... Yeah. And then another attacking midfielder that I put just behind the striker, I've gone for the Championship's top goal scorer, and based off of that statement, rightfully so, they deserve to be in my team of the season, is Blackburn's Sami Samodic.
Yeah, great player. A player that I would take up the road all day, every day. I would probably ask if he was open to the move. I'd probably ask him to play as a striker. I know that he was deployed a few times there for Blackburn towards the end of the season. Obviously, scoring a few goals at the King Power Stadium as well, showing he can do it against everybody. But he's been fantastic.
Yeah, unbelievable player. And I mean, I was very surprised with how far Blackburn finished in the Championship table. So by all means, I think that will attract interest naturally based off of that, and whether or not they manage to maintain his services, yet to be seen. But he's
got him for an absolute steal as well from Peterborough.
Yeah, I know. Oh mate, like I looked through some of the players where they came from as well, and some of them like Gabriel Sara as well came in for fucking peanuts. Samojic came in, like Morgan Whittaker I think was a free transfer as well.
Yeah, great business.
And then striker was a bit of a. I mean, it wasn't a tough one for me, but I noticed that a lot of people put in an individual that is in my honourable mentions, but I went.
Well, I mean, before you say the name, surely, it's the guy that just played a big role on Sunday.
It is the guy that played a big role on the Sunday. It's Adam Armstrong from Southampton.
Yeah, I think he's the best striker in the Championship.
Yeah, he was. He definitely was, and the numbers speak for themselves. Like a lot of people, and again, I'm gonna give this guy an honourable mention because he was fantastic and he was vital for Leeds, and that was Jorginho Rutter. Like he was fantastic for them, but like I said, the numbers.
He doesn't want to play that role. That's not his role, though. He wants to play that Shami Schmoduk's role.
Yeah, he does. But Adam Armstrong was the second highest scorer in the Championship, and he is an out-and-out striker, and that's what he does.
I think he'll do well next season. Like his movement, it's obviously a step up, but I honestly think he'll go up and he will score, 10, 15 goals for Southampton.
Yeah, no, he will. He will.
Obviously, this was his big break going to Southampton. He dotted around a few places, obviously from the northeast originally, and again, his price will rocket now. But he would have been someone I would have took up the road as well. But fantastic player. Go on and honourable mentions. You've obviously mentioned Rutter there, which is again, fantastic player. Who else gets into your honourable mentions?
Honourable mentions. I was honestly going to mention. I was going to say Haji Wright from Coventry.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's been an influential figure for Coventry this season. I was going to say Josh Sargent from Norwich as well. Like big boots to fill from when Pookie left, and I felt that he'd really stepped up to the plate and has had a really good first full season.
I think Jonathan Rowe from Norwich as well has had a good season.
Jonathan Rowe, fantastic. Honestly, like he's going to be one of those players that is going to get picked up by a mid-table Premiership club and will go on to big things. Like honestly, like unbelievable player. Really, really good player. Ipswich, Connor Chaplin, I'd probably put in there. Like I would have loved to have said Nathan Broadhead, but he doesn't start week in, week out for Ipswich. I would have said Emmanuel Latela as well from Middlesbrough. I think he's had an incredible season for Borough. And then past that, I mean, I can't think anyone else off the top of my head, like unless there's someone in mind you got, but
Mikey Johnson.
I tell you what, mate, like I wouldn't rule him out.
Pay. You can give us a couple of million for him. West Brom, he can be a permanent fixture at the Hawthorns.
Mate, I tell you what, he's definitely raised his demand by all means. Like I think that's probably the best decision that Celtic have made in terms of loaning him out because he's raised his value based off of that spell. 100%.
But I think we have run for quite some time. It was always going to be a long episode. You know,
Two and a half hours nearly. Like, mate,
yeah.
honestly, I could still go on for another 2 hours probably.
Yeah, we could dig in. We haven't spoken about the FA Cup, but United won it. You all know what the crack is there.
Well,
It's been on.
look, United won it. I mean, I watched the game. United had a game plan and they executed it perfectly. Personally, in my opinion, I think they missed Martinez and Varane at the back together. They were very patient in terms of City's heavy, patient build-up, and they got them on the counter. They pressed well, and they got two fantastic opportunities. Like, the first goal was a massive mistake from Gvardiol, which leads to Garnacho's opener, and then the second goal again, like, it's another fantastic long ball forward, which then leads to Bruno playing a very blindsided ball to Kobbie Mainoo, and he slots home with ease. And I think at that point it really set the tone for the game, and I think Man City, they sort of looked a little bit lackluster of ideas. Like, Haaland was completely isolated in that game. They couldn't really expose Foden the way they would have liked to. Like I said, I think Ten Haag got his game plan down to a T and paid off in the long term. And I mean, if there's really any question to follow off this game, is, has Ten Hag saved his job winning the FA Cup?
Maybe wasn't enough for Van Gaal, was enough for Fergie back in the day. So who knows? But yeah, like I said, it would have been everywhere. The FA, the English FA Cup final would have been plastered over everybody's screens. Everyone would have heard the 25,000 interviews that Ten Hag's done, and every United supporter's got pissy because people have said, "Why haven't you played that well all season?" Well, okay, and we've spoken enough about United across this year for two people that actually don't really give a shit. But congratulations to them.
Massive congratulations to Man United. Obviously winning some silverware this season was, I mean, at one point it looked very bleak, and they managed to do that against their biggest rivals. Don't know why Angry Ginge decided to get angry at a fan for having Ten Hag out on his shirt and record it. Because no, like, he recorded himself getting angry at a fan that had Ten Hag out on his shirt. Now, if I had gone to a Cardiff game, or if you'd gone to a Celtic game, seeing a shirt, I mean, it may be different with you, seeing someone wearing a shirt with Rodgers out on the back of it. I mean, I don't know if you would have really given a blind eye to it, but if I had saw a Cardiff fan with a shirt saying "Bullet out" on the back of it, I don't think I'd record my reaction to it.
No, look at tensions running high. He promotes himself as a passionate person, and maybe passions have spilled over a little bit. But no, I am.
It's a very short segment, by all means. It's a very short one.
Yeah, I think the United fan base are very split. They've had a really poor season. They've won the cup, but you're finishing in 8th as Man United. You probably are very close, if not on the brink of being sacked. I think maybe his only saving grace is that he's won the cup, and really there isn't a prime contender to come in. But he's got to start. He's got to hit the ground running next season if they do keep him on, because he's not going to have much leeway after this season. But he's finished on a high, at least. They will get some version of European football off the back of that, which has saved them a little bit as well. So fair play to him.
No, fair play to them, and like I said, they thoroughly deserve that result. At the end of the day, I think big individual players really stood up in that game and made themselves counted, and in the long run, they got the result that they wanted, and they came away with silverware. And I mean, if we're looking from a management perspective of Man United, like Ten Hag's taken 2 trophies in his first 2 seasons, which is something that I don't think Van Gaal and Mourinho have done in the past. Ralph Rangnick hasn't done it, and Solskjaer. Like I'm honestly, like, names are coming to my head right now, but I think he's definitely a man. Like, it's very difficult at the same time, because being a fan nowadays, like, it's very easy to buy into all the social media aspects of football, and how, like, AFTV promoting themselves of, like, get Wenger out, get Emery out, get Arteta out, like, all this nonsense that we've seen go on for the last couple of years, but no one has ever had that hypothetical or irrational thought of, like, well, who comes into this club and gets things right? Who really gets us back into the position and allows us to emulate the reputation that we have? You know what I mean? Like, it's really difficult, and like it's a youthful thing in football nowadays, where you've really got to consider who you want to come through the door. Like, if you want someone out, you've got to have a strong picture and a strong idea and vision of who you want to come in, and know how they want to run the club, how their philosophy is going to fit with the squad, how things are going to fit, fix everything,
Yeah. 100%. And I think that's probably as good a place to leave it.
It is. Yeah, it is. Look, Mayhem, I could talk to you for fucking days, mate. I could honestly talk to you forever. But look, I want to raise a toast to a fantastic and successful season, to you and Celtic. Cheers to that, clink. Sluncher to that, clink. And thank you as always.
Yes, buddy. We'll be back next week for the final act of the season. Obviously, the Champions League final. And then we will have some Euro 2024 discussion. And we may even, I think in next week, we may even do there's that Telegraph predictor where you can go through and you can predict who is where they're gonna finish in the group, and not only who's gonna win the competition. So we could even tag that on as we end in segment and see if how much we agree or how much we disagree on who may lift the trophy above their head come the end of the competition. But no, mate, it's been good. It's been good to another amazing season this side, and a developing season on your end, and one that
absolutely, of course,
holds a lot of promise and prospect, as long as the people in charge of Cardiff City Football Club do the correct things. Point one, make sure that Errol Bullitt is there to oversee the project, and then you can hopefully kick on next year.
Ladies and gents, thank you very much for tuning in this evening. If you are new to the Football Brew podcast, you can check us out over on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Audible, and all other audio platforms. We are everywhere, even on YouTube. Go check us out. You can see our lovely faces over there at the Football Booth. Check this out. Like the video, subscribe to the channel if you're new, ring the bell for notifications for the next episode, and leave your comments down below. If there's any segments you would like us to discuss, please let us know. And until next time, ladies and gents, I bid you all good night and the star.